Hey everybody, this is Matt, and in today's video I have for you something you've all been waiting for. We have our Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel Diamond 1 Labrynth deck profile. No more Tiers Edition, that's right. So, Tier Limits is here. We're allegedly in the Tier 0 meta, right? Just released, we got a new ban list, we got the Tier Limit deck basically at full power, let's be honest. And yeah, no Bestials. Snow is legal, we have Chaos Rule legal. Yeah, it's not a good time to be playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel because, yeah, everyone and their mother is playing Tier Limits, which is a very cancerous, toxic deck designed by 6-year-olds who had no idea what they were doing. And, you know, just like in OCG and TCG, this deck will inevitably be banned because Konami realizes that they've done goofed and made a huge mistake. So, yeah, enjoy it while you can, you meta slaves. But for those of you who hate Tier, keep facing Tier, really want to put Tier in their place, this is the deck profile for you. So we are in a Tier 0 meta, folks, but it is not, the Tier 0 deck is not Tier Limits, it is Labrynth, that's right. I'm going to show you how you build Labrynth to absolutely dumpster Tier and everything they stand for, like their entire existence, right? So I know it's been a while since I made one of these. That's because in the last format, before Tier came out, when we were in like the Exosister, Runic, Sprite, Math Mech format, deck building was a lot trickier. And in fact, that was probably one of the most annoying metas to deck build and to climb. But Tier meta is so easy. It's so easy. It's the easiest climb into Diamond 1 you'll ever have. So I know it has been for me. So let's get into the deck build, and just like in the previous videos of mine, I'm going to break down the thought process, the deck building process, step by step. For those of you who don't care, you just want to see the deck list, just jump to the end of the video. I'll probably have, just jump to the end of the video. Anyway, first, we will begin with our Labrynth Core. So we do not yet have Lady Labrynth, nor do we have Big Welcome Labrynth, but it doesn't matter. We will be running 2 copies of Ariana, 3 copies of Welcome Labrynth, 2 copies of Lovely Labrynth. Unfortunately, because we don't have Lady, we have to run 2, right? 1 copy of the Labrynth Field Spell. That's right. So, in the TCG, we had access to Lady Labrynth during most of the Tier format, and we had access to 3 copies of Metaverse. So, in the TCG, I did not bother with the Labrynth Field Spell. Instead, I just ran double Necro Valley and double or triple Metaverse, whatever, with Trap Trick, right? So, the Field Spell was Necro Valley, right? But we are not running Necro Valley in this build, and the reason is because without Lady, Necro Valley significantly hurts our deck because Lovely really needs to reset cards from the graveyard. So Lady sets trap cards from the deck, right? So we can ignore our graveyard. But Lovely really needs that graveyard. Otherwise, we're killing our own engine, and we're doing more damage than we ought to be. But don't worry, we have plenty of other anti-tier options. But if you're playing another deck, Subterror, Gravekeepers, whatever, even Flu, run Necro Valley. Necro Valley is great card against Tier, right? But I opted, because we don't have Lady in the in Master Duel, we will not be playing Necro Valley. So because of that, we will be playing 1 copy of the Labrynth Field Spell. 1 is all we need. Don't bother with any of these other Labrynth cards; they're all garbage. If you play Furnitures, you're asking to lose. Anyway, so 8 card core. That's all we need. That's all we need. This is our engine. Yeah. That's pretty much all you need to know about the Labrynth Core. Let's get into the Trap Deck Core, right? So this is the Matt Special. For those of you who see my deck profiles, you know what's coming. Basically, I pretty much put these cards in almost all my trap decks, all my back row decks that I play. So we are playing 3 copies of Lord of the Heavenly Prison. This card is absolutely cracked. Any player playing a trap deck and not playing these three of these, I swear, is out of their minds. You're playing Ultra Guys, you're playing Subterror, you're playing Trap Tricks. Why not play Lord? Read what this card does. It's a 3K body, first of all. Second of all, it says, during your main phase, activate this effect. This card becomes revealed till the end of your opponent's turn. While this card is revealed by this effect, set cards on the field cannot be destroyed by card effects. So your back row is protected, folks. Won't get popped by the Tier Limits Field Spell, so that's good. If a set spell trap card is activated except during damage step. You can special summon this card from your hand. Then, if you activated this effect while this card was revealed, you can reveal and set one spell trap directly from your deck, but banish it during the end phase of the next turn. You can only use one Lord of Hell Prison effect and only once per turn. So, basically, you can summon Lords at 3k body and then you can set a spell trap from your deck, but it will be banished on the end phase of your next turn. So, yeah. So, 3 Lord of the Heavenly Prison. Next, we are running 2 copies of Pot of Extravagance, 2 copies of Pot of Duality. Even if Duality was a semi-limit, we'd be running at 2 because you never want to see 2 copies in your opening hand. That's very bricky. So if remember, trap deck, unlike a combo deck. Combo deck, you want to put as many copies of your combo pieces as possible because you see a combo, you pop off, you make your full board. Trap deck, our hand is our board. So if you have 2 copies of Duality or 3 copies of Duality in your hand, 2 of them are bricks, right? That's 1 or 2 fewer interruptions we will not have on our opponent's turn. Same with Extravagance. Also, you're never going to play the 3rd copy of Extravagance anyway. We play a grind game. We seldom OTK, so yeah, you don't want to draw into too many Extravagances. And also, folks, Lord of Heavenly Prison can search Extravagance, so yeah, you almost always see this card, even at a 2 of, and you'll never play the third copy. So yeah, run this ratio. It's muy bueno. Next, let's go into 2 copies of Trap Trick. This card is great. It's 2 more copies of every normal trap in our deck. That means 5 welcomes essentially, right? Banish a trap from deck, set a trap of the same name from your deck. So even when you're getting your stuff milled by tier elements, this is still active most of the time. It's very rare that they actually hit all the copies of whatever, but I've never had this be dead. So it's a good card. Definitely run this. Yeah. On the end phase with Lord and Trap Trick, you can do so many cool plays. So let's say with Lord you want to set a card and you don't want it to banish on the end phase. You can set Trap Trick and then Trap Trick will search the card you actually want, like D-Barrier, Torrential, Punishment, whatever. And then that card will stay on the field, right? But also, on the end phase, you can Trap Trick and welcome. You welcome, and if they ash you, you summon Lord after a new chain, and then Lord sets another copy of welcome. And then they basically need a second ash to stop your welcome again, which, unless you're a Sky Striker player, they don't have 2 ashes. Sky Striker players always have 2 ashes. Other players do not. So yeah, very good card, Trap Trick. Mandatory 2 of it. It's so good. The only reason it's not a 3 of it is because it's once per turn. If it was once per turn, it'd be great. We'd be at 3 of, right? And then finally, we have 3 copies of Solemn Strike. This card is not once per turn. It's just good. Negates summons. Negates monster effects, destroys. Oh, your opponent summons 4 Material Zeus? You say no. Opponent summons X-Code, you say no. Your opponent summons Burn the Fleur, you say no. This just kills everything, right? Burn the Fleur tries to pop one of your cards, you say no, right? It's just great. Against tier elements, specifically, very important. Listen to what I'm about to tell you, because if you misuse Solemn Strike, you're gonna have a bad time. So do not Solemn Strike tier monsters on the field. Do not do it. There's no point. Because if you Solemn Strike a tier monster like Rhino Heart, or Shiren or Havness, right? Or Merly, you'll negate whatever its field effect is. You'll kill it. It goes to the graveyard, and then it activates its graveyard effect to fuse, right? Or I guess Shiren would be the hand effect. The point is, you want to save Solemn Strike to negate the tier element's fusion effects in the graveyard. So if they normal summon Rhino Heart, use this effect, let it go through. They mill a card. Let's say they mill Merly, whatever. Merly attempts to fuse, then you Solemn Strike. Okay? Solemn Strike the graveyard effects, not the field effects, because they want to be destroyed by card effect on the field and in the hand. They do not want their graveyard effects to be negated. If you're a tier player, you want your graveyard effects to go through, and Solemn Strike can say no to them. So please do not misplay or misuse Solemn Strike. It's one of the best cards in the deck, and it's not once per turn. Go watch my Adventures of series that I posted earlier today. There was a game where I drew 3 Solemn Strikes and I won. It's just great. So we're already at 20 cards, and that's the core, right? We have our Labrynth Core, we have our back row / trap deck core. Now let's get into our normal traps. So we are running 2 copies of Torrential Tribute. So I was running 3, but then I cut this down to 2, and I'll explain why later. The short version is that this card is not great against tier. It's good, but it's not great against tier. They're better cards. I cut down the 3rd copy of Torrential Tribute to make room for more anti-tier tech, as you'll see later, right? So 2 copies of Torrential Tribute. It's not once per turn. Most other deck profiles, I would run 3. And in fact, you can run 3 if you like. I would not fault you. It is a great card. Let's say you don't have a tier matchup, you have other matchups. This card will come in clutch. Also, against tier, let's say they have a board consisting of Rukalos, Kaleido Heart, and a bunch of other stuff, right? The normal summon, you Torrential. All their stuff dies, Rukalos and Kaleido Heart return. You Torrential a second time. They die, and then they stay dead. So, yeah, 2 Torrential is not bad against tier 1 Torrential, better going first because most of the time you want to Torrential their any attempt for them to make a rank 4 and to go into Zeus. You don't want to let them Zeus. You can Solemn Strike the Zeus. You can Torrential their level 4s. Yeah, so we're at 2, but feel free to run 3 if you really, if later when you see this deck list you say, wow, you have way too much anti-tier tech. I'm not seeing that many tier. Maybe your experience is very few tier and ranked, which is kind of bizarre. But if you're not seeing that much tier, go ahead and run a 3rd copy. But I saw so much tier, especially in Diamond, that I'm like, yeah, I'd rather cut this a 3rd Torrential for other tech. Anyway, so we are running 2 copies of Dogmatic Punishment. It's once per turn, that's why we're at 2, and with Trap Trick we have 4. Same with Torrential, we have 4 copies, right? Yeah, this card is great. Pops a monster, triggers Lovely, triggers Welcome Labrynth the Grave, triggers Ariana. If you send Ensigns, you can pop a back row. It's just all around great card. We are running 2 copies of Compulsory Evacuation Device. So I think in other deck profiles, I talked about cutting this down to 2. Compulsory is very important in the tier format because bouncing is actually better removal than destruction against tier. And in fact, there was a time when I was playtesting earlier in my climb with 3 of them, but I think 2 is enough. Yeah, you want to bounce Rukalos, you want to bounce Kaleido Heart. Don't, like, destroying them is kind of pointless. And if you run into a random branded player, you bounce their Mirror Jade. So, yeah, 2 copies of Compulsory, and you can Trap Trick into it. Our final normal trap that we have is 2 copies of Dimensional Barrier, which is actually part of the anti-tier tech. And actually, you know what? I'm gonna save D-Barrier for later. I'm just gonna say all my anti-tier tech at once, right? So yeah, but spoilers, we are running 2 copies of D-Barrier because it's amazing. Let's get into Floodgates. We are running 1 copy of Gozen because that's all we're allowed access to now. 1 copy of Rivalry. 1 copy of Skill Drain. So unfortunately, because of a Degenerate deck, aka Runic, all of these Floodgates were put to 1 when they were perfectly fine at 2 or 3. There's like, again, Runic was the problem, not the Floodgates. The reason you're not seeing as much Runic now is not because of this limit, it's because tier dumpsters Runic. Like, Runic cannot keep up with tier, so that's why. It's not because this ban list finally killed Runic. It's because Runic is just not good against tier. So, yeah. So we're running 1 of each Floodgate, but guess what, folks? Get like top. So here's the Galaxy Brain take. Because these cards are 1-ofs, you're actually going to see them more often in your opening hand, right? Because that's Konami Master Duel logic, right? If a card is a 1-of in your deck, you will always open it. So if you see my Adventures of series, you wouldn't even guess that Gozen, Skill Drain, and Rivalry are at 1 because of how often I see them. Go look at my duels. I see these cards so often, even though they're 1-ofs. I swear, it's like Konami has like built-in code in their game that says if a card is a 1-of, increase the chance of drawing it. Like, I swear they have this, right? Because even like when Lovely's at 1, you always see it, right? Like, you always see the break. You're playing the Psyframe gear with Driver, you see the Driver in your opening hand. It's like glued, you're right. Same thing. Now that these Floodgates are at 1, Konami unleashed their full power. It actually made them like show up like all the time now, right? Which is hilarious. I swear I see these more often now than I did when they were 2-ofs and 3-ofs. So anyway, so that is our deck. 29 cards of just, good old Labrynth Core, trap deck / back row core / yeah, like trap core or trap tech, right? Rivalry and Gozen can clear the tier element's field because Rivalry. Kaleido Heart is a fiend. Time Thief is a psychic. Elf is a thunder. Rukalos is an aqua. Draco Sapelli is a plant. Barone is a warrior. Yeah, Rivalry completely obliterates tier elements. Gozen, still good because Rukalos is a water. Kaleido Heart is a dark. Sprite Elf is a fire. Barone is a wind, right? So yeah, it does a good job. Not as good as Rivalry, but it gets the job done. You'll clear the board. And Skill Drain, of course, just like helps you win games. You should just play it. So that means the remaining 11 cards of our deck, so more than 25% of our deck, is going to be Johnson & Johnson's No More Tears edition of cards. So the remaining cards are all cards that say FU tier, screw tier, I hate tier, right? So let's start with 2 copies of Spear Mode. This is not tier specific, but if you go second against tier, they almost, assuming they didn't brick, their end board will have 3 monsters, right? Rukalos, Kaleidoheart, Elf, Elf, Time Thief, whatever. They will probably have 3 monsters. If they only have 1 or 2 monsters, then they're kind of bricked. They actually like sort of bricked, and it doesn't even matter, right? Plus, if they have Elf, like they're Elf and another monster, they'll probably get a 3rd monster like very soon. So yeah, 2 copies of Sphere Mode. We are playing 2 copies of Dimension Shifter. Go watch my Adventures of a video about this card. But basically, you don't want to shotgun this, right? Again, because I teched this in late, this was a late tech. So basically, before I put in D-Shifter, I had a 3rd copy of Torrential and I had Eradicator. The reason I had Eradicator is because when I was doing my climb from Platinum 5 to Diamond 5, I saw a number of Runic, Branded, Labrynth Mirrors, like Inspector Border Stun, blah blah, all of which are really weak against Eradicator. So I thought about keeping that 1 copy of Eradicator just to deal with those decks. But the higher I got in Diamond, I just saw only tier. So I'm like, all right, D-Shifter it is. Like, I don't need Eradicator, and this 3rd Torrential is unnecessary. Let's just go D-Shifter, baby. Like, great going first, great going second. You can't go wrong with it. So remember, if you watch my Adventure series, you want to don't shotgun D-Shifter. You want to D-Shift at the right time. When Kit Kalos activates effect to send itself to the graveyard, you chain D-Shifter, and Kit will banish itself. They will not get a mill 5. Havness will summon, and if they mill 3 more, that's banished. Merly will waste its effect. They'll have no Kit, and if they don't have King of the Swamp, they are toast. So be patient with your D-Shifter. Use it at the right time. Obviously, if you're going first and you have to pot, you kind of have to D-Shifter. You can only D-Shifter when your graveyard is empty. So if you pot, you got to chain D-Shifter, right? Otherwise, you hold D-Shifter until the right moment. All right, so yeah, more tier hate. So I already mentioned Dimensional Barrier. This card is MVP. This is legit the best card in the deck. Great against Exorcist, you call Xyz, they can't do anything. Great against Branded, if you call Fusion, they can't do anything. Yeah, those are like, and the top 3 decks, popular decks. We have Tier Limits, we have Exorcist, we have Branded. Once in a blue moon, you'll run into a Sword Soul, you just call Synchros, right? But D-Barrier is so good because it's a normal, you chain it to their graveyard effect. So just like D-Shifter, you don't shotgun this. You wait. Let them mill one of their names, activate their effective fuse, and then you chain this and call fusions, right? Because that way they've wasted resources, right? They put resources in the graveyard. They either have to shuffle it with one of their Ishizu shufflers, or it's just resources that are gone, right? So yeah, hold D-Barrier for the right time. By the way, D-Barrier can negate, is a pseudo skill drain, right? If you call fusions, it negates all their fusion monsters on the field. It negates Rukalos, it negates Kaleidoheart, it negates Drago's Stapelia. So this card is cracked. And in fact, because it's a normal spell, normal trap, Lovely can recycle it. Go watch my Adventures of series. There's plenty of games where I recycle D-Barrier every turn and I just win the game off that. D-Barrier can be set off Trap Trick. So yeah, you have 4 copies. If you realize their tier, you have no other Floodgates, you just Trap Trick into D-Barrier, force them to use their resources, and then D-Barrier and call fusions. And then their only plays Xyz, and then it's very easy to stop their Xyz plays because they're very predictable. But yeah, anyway, D-Barrier, great. We are running 2 copies of Dimensional Fissure. So this card is great. My opinion, better than Necro Valley because it doesn't stop your Lovely from functioning, right? This says all monsters that go to graveyard are banished. So your traps are not banished. So if you use D-Barrier, it goes to graveyard, you have a Lovely on the field, Lovely can recycle that D-Barrier. Will not be banished, right? All the tier limit monsters and whatever will be banished. Their spells and traps will not, but the spells and traps don't matter. Their monsters are the pain in the asses, right? So if you can get some key monsters like Kikala banished, that's just over for them. Like, and this card is great going second because you go second, you shotgun this, force their crime, like them to negate with crime, or they're done. Like they have no more follow-up plays because all their follow-up plays require sending monsters to the graveyard and milling cards, and if they can't do that because of D-Fissure, then they have no follow-ups, right? So D-Fissure, great card. So good, so good, so good. And then finally, the other MVP card of the game here, or of the deck rather, Soul Drain. 3 copies of Soul Drain. So Joke's on you, Konami. You limited skill drain, but we have skill drain 3, so it doesn't matter. This card will carry you to the promised land, right? It's so good. It's better than skill drain because, let's read. Activate by paying 1,000, just like skill drain. Monsters that are banished, as well as monsters in the graveyard, cannot activate their effects. Skill drain, they can still activate their effects. This says you can't even activate, and it stops banished monsters. So if you run into a random flu player, guess what? Their birds that are banished will never recycle to their hand ever again under this. So this card is cracked. Absolutely mandatory 3 of. And the only thing is that D-Fisher and Soul Drain shut off punishment, right? Because if you so not completely. So D-Fisher punishment can't, you can activate it, but it'll do nothing. Under Soul Drain, you can send a monster. It'll pop the monster that you target, but then whatever you send, like Entis, cannot activate its effect if you're under Soul Drain. So one thing you can do is, let's say they have a tier monster on their field. Let's say they have, I don't know, let's say Merly, right? What you do is activate punishment. You send Entis, right? You can, if you don't want Merly to activate in the graveyard, you chain Soul Drain to the same activation of punishment. Merly pops, can't activate. Or if you don't care about that activation, or rather, another thing you can do is, like, let's say you want to pop with the Entis. You pop a tier name with the Entis instead, right? So what you can do is punishment, target their Sprite Elf, for example. Send Entis. Entis chainlink 1, target their, let's say, Rukalos or their Kaleidoheart. Chainlink 2, Soul Drain, right? So Entis already activated. Soul Drain will make it so that when you pop the Rukalos and Kaleidoheart, their graveyard effects will not trigger, right? And then you can just play on. So Soul Drain, you can play around it a little bit with punishment. But the thing is, like, it's so good, it doesn't even matter that it turns off like that. The aspect of, like, oh, you don't get a second pop off punishment, like, because of Entis. But if you play around it, you actually can, right? You just gotta punishment the first target on a non-tier, like Sprite Elf or Time Thief, right? And then when Entis activates, then you chain Soul Drain. So then whatever Entis pops, it will not trigger in the graveyard. So yeah, Soul Drain, mandatory 3 of. Yeah, this deck profile will take you to that promised land. You will get to Diamond 1. You will just dunk on tier, right? So this is a deck profile. Again, if you aren't seeing that much tier, feel free to take out 2D Shifter, put in a third Torrential, put in an Eradicator. Basically, this was my deck profile right before my last minute changes. I had this, but then because I saw so much tier in Diamond, I'm like, all right, I don't need this Eradicator anymore, and this Torrential can actually. Wait, I want the shiny Torrential. Okay. This Torrential will actually be Shifter. So yeah, so I'm very happy with this deck profile, and I think you'll have a really easy time because 11 of our 40 cards are anti-tier. You're gonna see one of these cards. You're just gonna do it, right? Just keep in mind that they have ways of outing these cards. Obviously, Zeus plays, so don't let them go into rank 4s. If they summon 2 level 4s, clear their board, or Solemn Strike the rank 4 summon, right? Or if you want, you can Solemn Strike the Zeus summon. Either way, you don't want them to make the Zeus. But also, the other way that they out these Floodgate, some of these outs, I mean, D-Barrier, there's like no out, right? But against like Soul Drain, against Fisher, basically they need the field spell on the field, and then they have to spin a Tier Limits player from their Tier Limits card from their graveyard by using one of their shufflers, and then the field spell can trigger and pop. But if they don't have that, then they can't pop, and it's worthless. So anyway, so that's the main deck. Let's get an extra deck. So extra deck is not that important. We are running 3 copies of Elder Entity and Tis. This is the best punishment target. We are running 1 copy of what is it? Fossil Warrior Skull Knight. So for those of you who haven't seen this one before, it's similar to Entis. It's 2400, but basically it says if what is it? You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target a monster on the field, destroy it. So this destroys a monster, but as a slow effect in the future, right? So if you don't need the second pop off Entis immediately, you can send Skull Knight and then you pop a monster in the future, right? We are running 1 copy of Wind Pegasus. It's a punishment target. You can if they pop one of your cards, you can banish this to spin one of their cards to the deck. Cypher Omega. This card's great. This makes it so that you can obviously shuffle. You can bounce cards in the graveyard back to the owner's decks, but also if you have Lovely recycling punishment every turn, Omega will make sure you never run out of targets. Because let's say you Entis turn 1 off punishment, and then you recycle punishment off Lovely. Turn 2 you Omega, pop a card, and then Omega can cycle itself and enters back into the extra deck, and then you can punishment again. So this basically generates you infinite punishment targets. Also, let's say your opponent milled all your lovelies, you can just Omega and bounce lovely back, right? For example. So yeah, there's also a way to get your lovelies back into your deck if they've been milled. So we are running the DDD package, which consists of DDD Wave King Kaiser, DDD Marksman King Tell, and DDD Divisor King Deus Machinex. These are rank 4 fiends that you can make off double Ariana. This never came up, but you know it's a good tech. Why not? Might as well have it. We are running Baguska. So 1 copy of Baguska. We are running the Zeus package. So, whoops, not Zodiac. Zodiac. Borbo, Chaka9, and a Zeus. We are running 1 copy of Dingirsu. This is our rank 8. It's good at protecting our back row, and it's also removal that doesn't target or destroy. So in case you have to deal with an annoying tower. And then we are running 1 copy of Soldier of Chaos. So some people will say that maybe you should run Abyss Dweller. Thing is, it's so hard to make Abyss Dweller, like, you know, Labrynth. But if you really want to, yeah, put Abyss Dweller, I guess, and take out. I didn't take out anything. You can take out this Skull Knight, or you know, whatever. Like, I didn't bother with Abyss Dweller because again, it's really hard to like turn 1 that, right? Whereas like the Zeus package, like all these other things are pretty good in later turns. Whereas Abyss Dweller is one of those you want on like turn 1. Otherwise, it doesn't do much, right? Anyway, but feel free to put Abyss Dweller. In fact, just in case it comes up, let's put in Abyss Dweller. And let's take out Fossil Warrior, Skull Knight. There you go. So, yeah, you now have access to Abyss Dweller. Cool. So this is so that's the deck. Yeah, I don't regret any of these, or like I wouldn't change anything. I'm very confident about this list. The reason I didn't put out a deck profile video before tier came out, like during the Mathmech Exo Sister Runic Sprite format, is because I was doing deck list changes so often that I was never confident on any one list. So yeah, I didn't want to like give y'all a list and then immediately like regret it. So, but this list right here, I'm very confident and happy with. So play this, you'll get to Diamond 1 very easily. You'll stomp tier. Tier is a joke. Labrynth best deck. Labrynth is the actual 2-0. So anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Hope you learned something. Peace.